Well, welcome. We're gonna be showing who be gentleman in the down button.
Enter.
It's plugged into that.
Keep the CA as a box symbol. Well, as you work on that, we'll get some housekeeping out of the way. In the event there is an emergency,
It's something.
please exit the building through that door and out down the hallway. There's two portions of this presentation tonight. There's the actual presentation where we give you a bunch of information. And then after that, there's a Q&A where you guys can ask questions. Just so everybody knows, this town hall is being broadcasted on YouTube. So if there's something you need to refresh yourself about later, you can go find it on YouTube. So we're going to cover why the fire department is requesting funds, how the funds are going to be spent, set the limits for that, why fair food and beverage tax, the expected revenue, and how kind of a food and beverage tax works, and what's the plan for those funds. So a couple introductions. For those who don't know me, my name is John Logan. I'm the fire chief here in Cascade Office. I've been here since 2019. I have a wife and two children, one which goes to elementary school and one that goes to the high school.
I'm Brenda Wood, I'm your mayor, of Cascade Lots. I've lived here 17 years and very much part of the fire and EMS. Keeping it going.
I'd also like to recognize the volunteer firefighters that have showed up tonight in support. You don't mind just quickly raising your hand. So why do we need? Everybody knows that everybody's operating costs are going up. Unlike a lot of different businesses, I just can't raise rates. Right? So we're locked in by some laws that require us, and we'll go into those a little bit in the presentation. Everything that we do at the fire station, anything that we buy, pretty much has an expiration. As you see up here, there's some equipment. The gear that we wear all expires, and it's set by the manufacturer date, not the in-service date. So we could order a set of gear, and it could go on a shelf and waiting for a volunteer to arrive, and then that gear expires in 10 years, whether it's been worn or not. So that opens up a whole lot of legal issues if we have people in expired gear fighting fire, and increases liability in the city. And then our wildland gear is not as strict as the structural side, but that gear does expire. Things that we need to replace, like our fire shelter, which is that little silver thing right in front. That's kind of our last ditch effort. If something goes wrong on a wildland fire, we wrap ourselves up like a baked potato and hope that we make it through that event. And then our SCBAs, self-contained breathing apparatus, the tank that we wear on our back. Bottles have to be hydro tested every 5 years, And about every 15 years, the whole pack has to be replaced. In 2019, we were very fortunate that the Hoover County got a FEMA grant for those. So those have all been replaced. We took some delivery of those in 2020. So we have some time on those, but they are going to run out of service life. Our equipment, the driving equipment or apparatus is pretty old. So our newest rig is 2017 Medic that we bought used and did some retrofits to it to make it work for us. And how we bought that money or that apparatus was money through the CARES COVID Relief Fund. At the end of COVID, they gave the city some money, and fortunately enough, we were able to utilize that money to buy that ambulance. And then our oldest rig is a 1990, and it's pictured here. It's lived a long life. It started out in Forest Service, and then once they were done with it, there's this program called PEP, and then local fire departments can then receive that for no cost other than the maintenance cost. I don't know when the last time anybody went to Napa to try to get parts for an older vehicle, but it's getting very difficult to find parts to replace these things that come up with apparatus. And sometimes Napa doesn't even have, we have to go to the manufacturer. They really don't have them anymore. So, being professional, what does that look like in fire service? We need to update a bunch of our uniforms to include rain jackets. We only have like 10 rain jackets that are probably 15 years old, and waterproofing doesn't really work on them anymore. So, in a place that averages 80 inches of rain a year, that rain jacket is a pretty high value piece of equipment. Class B uniforms, which is what I'm wearing today. Not a lot of us have them. The ones that do have them have either scrounged around and found one in a drawer that fits them, or have bought them themselves. So getting everybody into these. So if we need to have a better uniform on for a special event, or it's something that we're going to wear while we're on duty, we have those instead of just a t-shirt. And then obviously the newer equipment, the look of the new equipment goes into professionalism. If I were a resident, I call my home something from 1990 that showed up with a bunch of scratches on it. At the same time, a rig that was purchased in 2020 showed up. Who do you think I'm going to go to and talk to first? Probably the guys that are driving the brand new rig, or the newer rig, that doesn't have a bunch of scratches in it. Now, the wildland rigs are a little different. They go into some pretty tense places during wildland season. But we try to maintain them to the best of our ability. Current funding system. So currently we're funded 42% by property tax out of the general fund. And then we get a bunch of assistance from the general fund to make. So we get revenues for this year are about just over $1 million, and 660,000 of that came from the general fund. So additionally to our 42%, we're getting an additional $275,000 from the general fund to make us whole. Kind of what this spreadsheet shows. We do charge for our ambulance service, but our service is a lot different than like water and power. So if somebody doesn't pay their bill, like can't shut their service off. So you call 911, you say you want to go to the hospital, I have to take you every time. Whether you can pay or not pay, have insurance, don't have insurance, I have to take you. You can call every day and request to go to the hospital, and legally, I have to take you. I cannot shut off service like the water department, the power department, if you don't pay your bill waiting for that revenue to come in. So, we get a lot of people that don't have insurance, they can't pay, they go to collections. People with insurance, sometimes their insurance doesn't cover the full amount of what we bill. And then they're responsible for a little portion. And then the Medicare, Medicaid patients. Medicare, Medicaid sets a dollar figure. This is the top dollar that we're going to pay. It is nowhere near real world operating costs. It is probably a third of what it costs for that transport is what they pay. So our billed amount, good. Our revenue from that is about 35%, which is pretty much industry standard. A little higher than some, but not as high as others. So, external revenue, kind of talk about our ambulance stuff. We also, 3 years ago, started renting one of our engine bays to the Forest Service, so they can have an engine in service year round. And it also got them out of a pretty bad work environment. Their building on Herman Creek is pretty old. So we rent them. Most of that money goes to help with building maintenance and anything that they're going to use, like toilet paper, and to offset some of their additional utility expenses. And then some of that money is set aside directly as a line item in my budget to purchase wildland gear that we may need throughout the season. We have been successful in some grants and unsuccessful in grants. With the ever-changing political climate, I'm not relying on federal grants. There's all sorts of fighting at the state level, federal level. But we have over the last 3 years received a $35,000 grant from the state fire marshal's office. And what we do with that is that adds 2 additional staffing during fire season. So they work July 1 through the end of October. And it allows us to have additional people during the day ready to respond to any emergency. And that has been super beneficial. And a lot of work has gotten done over the 3 summers. I think we're ready to go on the slide. So, property tax breakdown. We put a slide in here because I heard a lot of people like, oh, well, I paid $3,000 in taxes. City to roll in it. That's not the case. Your property taxes cover a lot of different things. And those, just for references, my property taxes, what I pay for my house. So it is local to Cascade Bluffs. As you can see, the school district takes 50% of all property taxes in this county. 50%. Then you have Henry County. They take a little bit more than we do, but we take 18% of that total number. And then all the other things that are taxed. The Windmaster Urban Renewal thing, that's a county-wide thing, so anybody that lives in the county pays for that. That's a sewer project for the Windmaster Urban Renewal District out by the high school. I don't know how they got everybody to pay for it, but everybody pays for it, whether we use it or not.
Don't you live in like the Shahala neighborhood?
Yes. I live down in Warco. used to live on Winsong, in the townhouse cul-de-sacs. So the big, yeah, this is city total. We get a percentage as the fire department. And you may be thinking, wow, a house that valued at $207,000, that's a good deal, right? There's a difference between your assessed value of your house and the real world market value. I hope that the house that I just bought doesn't sell for that amount. I would lose a lot of money. But this just illustrates where the city sits at in your property taxes. The city does not get your full 100% of your property tax. All right. Property tax limits. This is where it gets tricky. So in 1990, Oregon passed Measure 5, which put a total cap on the amount that municipalities and governments and school districts could tax. So schools are capped at $5, and local government is capped at $10 per thousand. So schools in our area, the Hood County School District, the Mount Hood Community College, and the Columbia Board of Educational Services District. Local governments or general governments in our area is the Port of Cascade Lofts and the city of Cascade Lofts. The Measure 50 was passed in 1997, which replaced the real market value with the maximum assessed value. So the $207,000 you saw on the left side, that's the assessed value. Measure 50, before that, they would take your taxes based on real market value. They reduced that to the maximum assessed value, which then lowered the collectible revenue even more. These two measures really created a lot of funding issues for a lot of different cities and fire districts in the state of Oregon. So what fire districts are doing, if you watch the news, you've kind of noticed the slow takeover from Plaquemines Fire District and how they just expanded their border. So they are coming together or taking over a smaller agency to keep themselves afloat. I'm not sure what George meant by double property tax. So I think I know what. So to get the amount of money that we need to update apparatus and to hire some additional staffing and to buy equipment, if we were to go out for a levy, which is another way we can collect money in the state of Oregon, is have a 5-year levy that is voted on by the residents, which is associated with property taxes. So the residents would own 100% of the burden. We would, that's pretty much have to double property tax. We would have to ask for another $2.70 per thousand of what we currently would have to ask for.
So Chief, do you mind going back to that slide to kind of show the impact where you had them broken up?
Yep.
So people kind of, when you say double, it's double the city's portion, right? Okay.
So double the city's portion.
Yeah.
We get 42%, which is locked in by city resolution.
So that's 42%.
Yes. And double property.
City of Cascade lot, yeah, before we-
We get 42% of that, which is about 160.
Yeah.
Well, I have $726 this year at the City of Cascade lot.
Yeah, so we receive 40% of the city's property tax, and estimated $162,500 this current year.
And there's about 757 houses here in Cascade lot.
So levy didn't seem feasible because what's the burden on the resident, 100%. And when we go to the next slide, why did we choose this? So it wasn't just like the city administrator and I said. We had a task force of people, and it started about 2 years ago that we put up together. So on that task force, we had the current city councilor, obviously me, the fire chief, city administrator. We had a local business owner that would be affected by this food and beverage tax. Unfortunately, she sold her wonderful restaurant and is no longer in that business. And then we had a volunteer firefighter sit on that. Just so the volunteers would have a voice in what was going on.
Got business owner now.
She now joined the fire. So why we chose this? Resident versus non-resident. So 2025 just ended. It's quite real easy, but doesn't have to go digging too far into reports. Out of 241 medical calls, 142 of those were non-residents, and 96 of those were people that lived. Out of the 192 fire calls that we had, 128 of those calls were for non-resident fires, so that's car fires, somebody falling down in the parking lot of the store and just needed help getting picked up. And only 63 of those were from residents. So looking at our numbers, who we respond to, is kind of why we narrowed it down. Because people that come here to eat, and it's the locals, are from out of this area. So how we figured out some numbers is we used Eco Northwest, which is a firm that does studies for municipalities. And they were able to use Placer AI data. So if you are concerned that your cell phone tracks you, you're right, because it does. They pull cell phone data, and 90% of the people that go to the restaurants in our town live more than 10 miles away from the city of Cascade Falls. So, looking at it, I'm a resident. I don't want to tax. I don't like new taxes, but I also don't like fire apparatus that's falling apart and not being able to staff calls to respond to your guys' emergencies. Last month I used the ambulance service, but really looking at, is it fair that the taxpayers of the city fund this thing 100% of the time? Only 40% of the time they're the ones that utilize that service. So in Oregon, the only 3 things that I know of to get a permanent solution or semi-permanent solution: 1, what we're talking about tonight, food and beverage tax; 2, an operating levy, which the residents pay 100% of; and 3, a bond, which the bond is for like capital improvements, so buying like our apparatus and stuff that doesn't solve all of our issues, all of our funding troubles. And 2 out of the 3, the residents fund 100%.
How does that compare to other cities in Oregon? like a percentage of use,
Uh,
residents and not.
I don't know who else tracks it. But I would assume, the three cities that currently have one of these, they probably track it, and that's probably the reason why they went funding source, is because they're tourist destinations.
How many of your calls that have to do with tourists were during any kind of event here in Cascade Locks? Like the marathons, the mountain biking events, and how many accidents have been on the electric bikes, like due to traffic?
I can think of maybe
CCTVs?
two electric bikes that were from West George. Two. There's been none at any of the Cross Crusade mountain bike stuff. We've had zero calls there. My first year here, since I've been here 2019, we've had one call at Marathon. So those events.
But also due during traffic and all that, like on or
Yeah, I don't know if they're coming to or from the event. I mean, 84 is kind of an animal of itself. But I don't know whether they're coming here to either Thunder Island or Gorgeous.
You guys
or
get-
different.
wildfire grants.
We do. That they're kind of tricky to get, and kind of what we're running into. We have 3 firefighter paramedics that work around the clock, and then I work Monday through Friday, most weeks, and sometimes more. But I'm only one person, and if we're going to be super successful at writing grants, we need somebody dedicated to write grants. Because Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, when you call 911 for a heart attack, it's going to be the firefighter, paramedic, and myself going there. So I'm leaving my office and going on emergencies and not having time to do grants and other administrative work that needs to get done. So I'm either staying late or working Saturday to make the deadlines that are needed for the administration.
You reached out to the community for volunteers to help you with the grant.
Yes, we have. With one lady that was kind of interested, and then we never heard back.
Cause I haven't received any information about any help. Anyway, and the reason she asked that question is because in the 6 years that I've been in business, I've never called fire or EMS at my business. So we haven't seen any activity down on Wanacott Street, so we're wondering where these calls are going to.
I definitely call them.
We've done to Brigham, we've done to Brown, we've done to
Yeah.
Gorgeous, been to East Winds,
Well, I called you one night.
we've been to Estafa.
Fire alarm. was going off.
And it was.
That was at your house though.
No, that was my house.
That was at your house. We've been to the ale house, Bridgeside. We've been there quite a bit.
So are you seeing percentages? Calls are happening?
Not the total percentages, but they do happen in businesses. I can't tell you that off the top of my head. The percentage of residents versus non-residents, I can tell you. All right. Next slide. So what is a prepared food and beverage tax? Local exercise tax. And what is taxed is food that is drink that is readily available. So, like, if you go somewhere and they have a prepackaged hamburger or sandwich that you can put in a lunchbox and go somewhere else, it doesn't count. But if you get a hamburger from East Winds that they made right there, the only drinks that we cannot tax is anything with alcohol. So beer, wine, all the hard alcohols. The state does not allow that because they already have a lot of their fingers in it.
So all the bars have a supplemental income that's not.
It is taxed, it's taxed by the state.
Right, but they don't, that's our plan.
I don't know how they budget for that. But they are definitely taxed more than 7% on their alcohol that they buy for their business. So the easiest comparison is like a cheeseburger at Eastland, or Gorgeous is taxable. The frozen lasagna that you buy at the Columbia Market. Next slide. So expected revenue. I already touched on Eco Northwest. They did a report for the city. And looking at the report that we originally thought, somewhere between the 5 and the 8%. They started at 5%. And we were, based on that report, gonna get about $259,000 estimated revenue. And then sitting down with a city manager or city administrator and looking at the needs of the fire department, we settled on a number that would be comfortable but not solve every problem. We need about $360,000 additionally. So that'll stabilize some of our operations that are kind of very underfunded. And allow us to kind of plan for the future. Buying new fire apparatus is a little different than buying a car or a truck. Right now, we found a money tree, cut it down, had money, and I ordered a fire engine. It's 3 years out. And your basic stock fire engine is $1 million. Which, when I started in the fire service, 2002, that same engine was about $300,000. So inflation in the 24, almost 25 years has gotten out of hand. And right now it's being taught at the federal level with Congress. But it used to be that back in the day, there was multiple manufacturers of fire apparatus, and you had your mom and pop local to your region. You did have the big names that were nationwide. But over time, those mom and pop shops have sold out to basically 3 manufacturers of fire apparatus. 3. We're kind of dealing with and they all like to price themselves about the same. So whether you went with one brand or another, you're not going to save any money. It's not like you go to the Rolls Royce dealer and it's like $1 million for that car, and you go to the Toyota and it's $300,000 for that car. Like they're all the same. So shopping around is not that big of an option. And then why new, not used? Usually when a fire agency is selling a piece of apparatus, because it has an issue. They're tired of dumping money into that issue. So inheriting somebody else's problem doesn't solve our solution, or doesn't solve the problem. It only creates a bigger one. A copy of that report will be made available to anybody that would like it. Next slide.
I guess on that 7% number, are there any other cities in the state of Oregon that go like 5% number?
Not that I know.
So I told you guys at the last meeting, other meetings, that you guys will well meet your goal at a 5% number. Just from the numbers that I can see that we do. And then, guessing what everybody else in town. 5%, I think is more than enough, the 360 number. So, is this something where it's like, hey, that presentation came out, guys, I looked at it and said, hey, yes, I can tell you right now from what I can see you do and what you're asking for, those are two different things. Is it something where it's like, what does it take that you guys press some businesses in town that 5% is enough? And you don't go above what every other city in the state did. Sure.
I'll answer that one. Thank you. And the council did hear you at the business one, and we have since asked the city attorney, like, what if we get too much money? Can we go down? So he did say that we could go down on the percentage and that we could never go above it. We could never go above the 7%. But if we say, hey, we're getting too much money, then we can always go down.
But I mean, if you guys are getting paid money, you're never gonna say, oh, we're not gonna take it. You're just gonna find another apparatus line.
Bernard, did you have some?
Yeah, so a thought I just had was maybe the way we write the measure is we put a trigger in there. It says, if at X% we achieve this much revenue, that the council is forced to reduce the rate to acknowledge the real revenue that businesses are sending to the city. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You put that in writing. There's no, oh, we want, now that we got all this revenue, let's buy all this stuff. No, we take that out of our hands. It's only in the voters' hands. And so we have a revenue target. If we meet that target, much quicker than than is needed, then we're forced to reduce it to just keep it at that level.
Wait,
Yeah.
you told me there was a stopgap.
What's that?
You said there was a stopgap, so once the fire department receives the money that they're asking for over 300, then the tax goes away.
No.
No.
And our reason for having the town hall and talking to you guys is so we're very transparent and truthful and everybody's getting the same information. And that's why we talked to the city attorney about that. There's not a stopgap. But we are listening to you guys. So there's going to be questions that we're trying to get through the presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A session to where if we don't have the answers to your guys' questions, we're going to write them down to show you guys that we really hear you and we're going to get you answers. So it's trying to work together to come up with a solution that works for us without us, the residents, putting the whole bill. Because we already do a $9 fee on our electric bill, and we need fire and EMS. But I'm gonna let John go ahead and then we'll get to the Q&A and then we'll hopefully be able to answer all these questions for you guys.
So the collection process, forgive me if I stumble through this. I'll go on that, put this together.
Yeah, so I will just interject too. You're doing a great job, John. We've had such a change just overnight. So, for those that have not heard, our city administrator is no longer with us. So he had put this presentation together and scheduled it and everything. And we wanted to keep it on the books because it is important to Cascade Lodge. So poor John is like having to really present and go out, and I'm trying to be supportive and do what I can do. So please be patient with us. I guess our YouTube live is not working, and I apologize for that. But we will work these kinks out and get better at it.
Yeah, I was only supposed to talk for 2 slides. Throwing that out there. So that's why I have this piece of paper, the numbers, and I'm going over numbers, because they were not my talking points, so I didn't. Until last night.
Thank you. You're doing great.
Thanks. So, collection process. There's 2 ways that businesses can collect this tax. So they can add it to a total bill where it prints out on your receipt, 7% food and beverage tax. Or you guys they can embed it into their pricing of their stuff. So you would see a 7% increase on a cup of coffee at Shauna's or Thirsties. And anywhere you go. That way, that method, there's less questions from people get their bill. Really, I don't really look at it. Okay, this is what I ordered, this is what it costs. Here you go.
I mean, I'm squarely gonna name you guys. I'm gonna say, and we mentioned getting paid for it from the new tax and stuff like that.
Yes,
So I can give the information to my customers and say,
Absolutely.
hey, we have an additional 7% tax on certain items. Show it there, and this is what it's for. Is that
absolutely,
something that you're still doing?
yes.
Cause I don't wanna raise my prices and hide it from them.
Yes, so for whatever business, however you choose, business owner, however you choose to do that, if you would like flyers or cards, we can get those out to you. Hang up in your businesses, to put it all over your tables if you want. I will tell you, I will not have a picture of you. Uh, Businesses will file a quarterly report with the city, submit a payment. So the next slide. How does this affect businesses? From our research, calling different the three cities that have it and talking with their, well, the city administrator, talking with their city leadership. And then just, kind of talking to, having them talk to some of the service industry there. So it does put an additional administrative burden on the business, we recognize. We compensate the business for that. Out of the total amount that you collected, that 7%, you will keep 5% of that to help offset your costs for doing the quarterly report. The city does not expect the tax to affect sales at the local business. Ashland and Yahats, and most recently Cannon Beach, have implemented a prepared food and beverage tax and did not notice a reduction in visitors or restaurant visitors. We expect it to be the same here in Cascade Lakes.
I don't think that's what they said then, came to the event. You said the exact, yeah, I agree, yeah. I actually reached out to them and you said they had a huge call. Yeah, they're thinking about recalling it because it's been so. Yeah. That's what I've been talking to you. So those 3 towns.
Which community was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ashland, Yahats, and Cannon.
But they're referring to all of them? Cannon Beach. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I have not seen any numbers.
Yeah, that
Um,
was he said,
I'm very much a guy that has to see it on paper.
Do we know how long they've had theirs in place?
Cannon Beach is.
Cannon Beach was the best last year, and they lost like 7 months.
And is that 5%?
Yeah, everybody was seeing like.
And Bill Ashland's had theirs since like. I don't know about y'all.
Are we all online with destination towns? Like.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Yahats is pretty close to our similar size. Residents.
You're saying we're,
Tourist destination. So it's funny here, there's, I mean, there's definitely.
We do a lot of events, we have the Screw Wheeler,
Like, they're coming here as a destination, hey, we're gonna book a hotel.
Marine Park,
Our voluntary-
hiking, mountain biking,
So,
sailing,
so
windsurfing, fishing.
The Oregon coast average length of stay for tourism is 4.3 nights.
Yep.
The average length of stay in Cascade Locks for tourism is 1.76 nights.
So the number of visitors to Multnomah Falls is over 1 million.
but they don't go in the building, they don't all spend their money there. I worked there for a very long time. We'd be very busy in the summer, people everywhere, standing in the dining room, empty dining room, watching tourists on the plaza, never coming in.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to that, but just because they're not going into XYZ business,
So
do
it doesn't,
services, but they're still falling out.
and I understand that, but our business is what's paying for this. So if we're not getting that business,
Your business isn't paying for it, the people that
right,
utilize your business.
but if they're not coming in and spending money there, then we don't have money to see my point. So if they're.
Right Right, so you wouldn't be-
Only people that can still-
Right, so when million people come there, but only 10% of them spend money there, you're not getting a million people for the money.
I understand what you're saying. And I understand that people, yes, they spend a longer stay at the coast. But to get from Portland to Idaho, or Portland to anywhere out east, you have to drive for a week. Right? Whether they stop or not is not my concern because they're not spending money.
But that's our concern, because
Right?
we have to give them the money, so if we're not making. You still need the money, but.
You would not pay any money that you didn't have.
You wouldn't pay anything that nobody.
I don't think she's saying that, I think she's saying that if the pedestrians aren't stopping, you're still having a deficit in funding towards the fire department. So all those people
if
on the
that
highway aren't spending money in Cascade Lock, you still need funding to pay for them, we're not making the money to pay for them. So the numbers don't add up to that we're actually servicing this many people. Drive by on.
The estimated numbers in here had nothing to do with the amount of traffic revenue paid for. It had everything to do with people inside restaurant businesses spending money. So that's where our estimated numbers are. Are we gonna be able to collect from every person that drives through Cascade Locks? No way. No way. But we don't have any big industry in town to help with the property tax. Every time a big industry comes in town, it goes down. So what do we have? We have fees.
Why are we looking at tourist attraction things like, okay, is the Lulu are gonna have to pay anything?
Yeah.
Is the horse by the horse gonna have to pay anything?
Tourist attractions don't pay. They don't pay into the fire.
Well, I know, I have a
Everything
tax
about
statement right
Cascade
on my
Lock will
phone.
not put any money back. You need a stable source of money.
So how other areas are doing it? They're either combining with a larger agency next to them, or they're closing their doors and there's no services.
Honestly, we
Or
can
they're
pay for our own.
services for 30.
Hood River would rather send them more work for us. I mean, that's the only thing
Yeah.
I feel. Hood River's gonna take 55 minutes to get to it. Stevenson, I don't think, I mean, that's just my opinion and the way Hood River treats Cascade Lock. So we
So-
have to pay for our own, and that's my
So-
opinion. It's not, you know,
If we had a call for any of us from whatever right now, we had a backup call right now. None of us firefighters were here. It would take 35 minutes for that ambulance to get here. If it was gonna come from Stevenson, it's about 15. The weird caveat, Stevenson is an Oregon agency, has to request it. So the River Fire would have to tone out and say, no, contact Scabinia County because they are a Washington agency. We have a mutual aid agreement with them. We go over there too. But somebody on that side of the river has to make the request for somebody on the other side. They can't be auto dispatched through the city of Cascade Locks because they are not licensed to provide service here. So that's kind of how that mutual aid thing works. So about 15-20 minutes from Stevenson, 35 to 45 minutes from the river, depending on staffing. This is not just a Cascade Lock problem. This is a all Hood River County problem. This is a state of Oregon problem. It's a national problem. If you go to YouTube and type in fire department closing, there's a million videos and news articles of fire departments closing their shop. They can't afford to do it anymore. And the residents are just left with nothing. I'm trying to prevent us from getting left with nothing. And I'm trying to prevent us from the residents and people who live here having to pay 100%.
So is there any kind of organization, like, restaurants have, Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association and such? Are there any kind of, national entities like that, the residents could be writing to help levy the government, to help fund these agencies?
Your state representatives
So there's no.
to try to get. No, I mean, like, in Oregon, there's the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association, so it's, Fire Chiefs, formed an association that, once a year, there's a conference and they provide us training, so we can be better fire chiefs for our
And
residents.
do they go to Washington to?
They go to Washington DC and they go to Salem. And
So
then
we
there's,
could write letters to them to.
yes, there are some measure initiatives that are in the works to try to solve this, because it's not just a Cascade Loss problem. But we can't wait for those to go through.
Right,
But
but
that's
that's
a-
still start
yes.
pushing that at
Yes.
another level. So it's not just coming from the fire departments, then they're also getting feedback from the residents about how critical this service is.
Yep. So your state representative, your state senators, I've talked to Jeff Hilbridge a bunch. Like, we gotta figure this out, this is not okay. There are rural communities that have zero or little services. And the further east you go, the amount of services are scary. Some people are waiting 3 hours for an ambulance. So, yes, and then there's the International Association of Fire Chiefs, which is worldwide, mainly focused in the United States. They have lobbyists and everybody in Washington DC fighting on a national level. Last time I watched the news, I wouldn't want to be in Washington DC to save life, and trying to navigate that mess. So, yeah, new taxes. I frequent Jake's business all the time, and East Winds, and Jana for energy drinks. I've sat at my desk too long and I picked me up, and Brigham, I think my daughter spends $5,000 there a month. So, just remember, I'm a resident too. I moved my family here when I got hired. That was very important. Be part of it. Live here, work here. So I take that very seriously. But I'm a resident too, and this is gonna affect me.
Well, if we can help lobby with you,
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, all state representatives talk to about how to fund fire and EMS better in the state. Because if we close up shop, we're gonna be waiting for River. Because the private ambulance companies in the area, Mar and like the West, there's not enough calls for them to make money. So they're not gonna come take over. They just would be a losing situation. They are a for-profit. Where we're public entity. And as I've shared, when we take losses, would I like to be able to fix that? There's some work, some Medicare and Medicaid stuff. That's a big thing in Washington. A lot of bureaucrats and a lot of lobbyists. It's gonna take some time. My concern as a resident is that if I have to call 911, that there's an ambulance that shows up in like timely manner, and that a fire truck shows up. So that's what I'm trying to provide. I'm trying to do it shoestrings. We've made a lot of progress over the last 6 years. There's still a lot to go. For those who don't know, November, when we did the business ones. October, we had 2 meetings set up just for business owners to come in and see a slightly different presentation than what was here. To get their feedback and rework it for this presentation. And some things going to council for them to look at and rework the ordinance and stuff before it goes to a ballot measure.
on its way.
Yeah,
So when it
I
says,
do too.
when. When it says no. I'm sorry.
That was not my slide.
Okay.
I think it's just saying that you're not gonna decrease your prices, but they are gonna add the tax to the price.
Yeah,
You're not forcing.
yeah,
you
most
to
people that are
increase
gonna
your
see the 7% tax on their receipt, they're gonna say, well, I'm not gonna pay 15% on the tip, so it's fine. So that is an effect on tip. People are cheap.
We are really dependent on.
How many of you spent any time in a state besides Oregon? I've spent 3 months to 6 months in other states for freedom. Every time I buy a hamburger, every time I buy an ice cream cone, I'm living in a hotel room with a little tiny refrigerator, so I can't fill it up with food. So you gotta go out and eat. And I go out and I eat. And I'm paying that city, I'm paying for that city's taxes. Last place is LA, California. I paid over 10% tax on that for everything I bought that I ate. Other than what the last food in the hotel room.
That was the statewide tax, right?
That's state and city. That's combined. Now, I came home last time on July 3rd. The next day I got up and went downtown and I couldn't even walk downtown because I had to walk around so many people. There's people all over the place. And as I passed the ice cream store, here's all these people buying ice cream. I mean, there's a line practically going around the block.
But that was
And
July
they're
3rd,
they're
right?
paying no taxes.
That was
No
July 3rd.
city tax, no tax of any kind. I go downtown and the place is packed all the way down. Our town fills up with people like crazy all summer long. And
Summer.
they're getting by free as far as the city goes. But as the city goes, the people of the city are being gypped out too.
We think that possibly a lot of these people. They, we don't. I mean, I do hear them like, oh, it's so great.
But maybe there's 44 states in the United States that don't charge tax.
Yeah, but
Don't
you
have
said
to-
July 3rd, and if you walk down Wanapon now, what do you see?
I mean,
On a Saturday, it's
I'm just saying.
if you go on the Saturday to the East Wind and try to get in line for the drive-through, you're gonna be starting at the.
Okay, so that's the East Wind, but I work today at Thirsty, and about 97% of the people that came in there were locals. So we're also taxing the locals. That's who supports us during the winter time.
You get spring break.
I'd rather pay that tax than a double property tax. I'd rather pay the 7% for food, certain
But
taxable
it sounds
food.
like to me,
then
that
double my
nobody wants to
property
pay
tax.
for the fire department at all.
No, that is not true at all.
Then every time that there's something that comes up, that we want to somehow come up with a plan to.
No,
Get
it's
some
like you
income
guys
from the
are
fire
literally
department.
just looking at the food and beverage, and there's so many other ways to do this. So many.
Well, like Carl was saying, we went to Yellowstone for vacation, West Yellowstone, we stayed there. Now, mind you, it was like July, but still, West Yellowstone, and it was over 10%, well over 10%. Gladly paid for it, budgeted for it. Huh? Yeah, I tipped as is. Yeah, because somebody's working. You're working, everybody's working.
Be helpful to have some.
I think the first part of it is to be honest with them. we have a 7% tax to pay for our fire and EMS.
Yeah.
You know, and this is on certain items, not on everything. Take that off the table at the very beginning. Everybody gets to run their business the only way, any way they want. But that's what I would do, and that's what I'm going to do, have my employees, and then this is what is happening. Here's a pamphlet, blame John. Just kidding, but you know, I want fire and EMS. I don't want to wait for Hood River. I don't want to wait for Skamania.
And help the fire department. We're just also concerned about how much business we could lose. Like, it's a valid concern to us, but the food customers.
How is there any grants or anything that's out there? It sounded like it never happened because you weren't able to get anybody to help you even find it. So.
I've never seen a hard.
Can I ask that we get back to the presentation and do question and answers, please?
Sure.
Only so we can get through this, and then we want to hear you guys, we really do, but it want him to be able to like, kind of know
And
that
I know
his
that's
part.
not the-
Yeah.
So, effect on tourism. Most tourists that come to the state of Oregon are used to paying 10-20% tax. I don't think it'll deter them. It doesn't deter me from going to a Seattle Mariners game in Washington, knowing that I have to pay, I don't even know what their taxes are to pay. And I do get 20%. As long as the service is good. If the service is crap and the food's crap, and then I don't tip 20%, right? There's minimal price increases to stuff, if any, other than adding the tax onto your bill. He's saying that, the cities that he talked to, didn't say that there was a decline in tourism in their town. And this will provide additional or better services to tourists in our town. Next slide. So what will be spent on? We've already touched on some of these. The bottom one, equipment costs, making sure we have competitive wages to attract and retain staff. Right now, it's a very competitive market for firefighter paramedics. There are places that are paying double what we pay, and where they work less hours. So why would somebody want to stay here other than to deal with my smiling face every day? Increase our daytime staff. A lot of our volunteers work 1 or 2 jobs. And so having additional daytime staffing to respond to those emergencies, or to work on all the additional training requirements that the state puts on us every day. Back in the 80s and 90s, Ted walked into the fire station and said, I want to be a volunteer. We're like, sweet Ted, there's your gear, there's the fire truck, go for it. To be able to respond on a fire emergency, you have to have at least 144 hours of training before you can do that to obtain your firefighter 1. On the medical side, Oregon is one of the states, I believe, where the community colleges have got a hold of the EMS training programs. And so to be a paramedic in the state of Oregon, you have to have a 2-year associate's degree. To be just an EMT, which is the most basic level, is a 2-term college class that costs about $5,000. If you want to go to the 2 other levels in between paramedic and EMT, it's for the advanced, it's about another 6 months of schooling. Either intermediate, top of your advanced, it's an additional month and a half. So somebody that's walking in my door to volunteer that I can put to work needs about 1.5 years worth of training before they're super helpful to me. Otherwise, they're in their learning phase and trying to figure it out. we don't necessarily deal with a very safe environment all the time. So those kind of two are kind of basic. To do some of the other stuff that is requested of the fire department, like response to hazardous materials, is a 2-weekend class. Rope rescue is a long class, 30 hours, 40 hours. And some of the other functions, wildland firefighting, because we do that as well. The basic 3 classes to get you up and running takes about 2.5, 3 weekends, plus a field day where you actually go out and utilize those tools. So every year it seems training requirements that are put onto us by the state increase, which I love training, I love knowledge, to better serve the community, but at some point in time, you have to look at how much time a volunteer is putting in and what they're getting out of it. Today's world, average volunteer lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So if you're spending a year and a half to get that person trained, you have a year and a half, 3 years where they're super beneficial to your agency. Volunteerism is declining across the nation. It's a nationwide problem in the fire service. I don't know how many webinars and trainings I've been to about attracting volunteers and retaining volunteers. Nobody seems to have the silver bullet. So a lot of places are doing what we're doing, is transitioning to a career or paid department, which provides that service, provides it quickly, but it comes with a cost. So that's kind of where the additional funds are going. All right, next slide. So timeline. So we had, I guess it's November. November, we had our business focus group, 56. They were down at the fire station. I appreciate all the businesses that attended those. It was great dialogue. You got to kind of see our apparatus and some equipment that we work with. Tonight is the town hall. Deadline to file with the county to get it on a ballot measure is February 27th. Looking for campaign sometime in April, May. Election day is May 19th. And then this can be a floating target, but looking at information day of October 1st. So once we get everything back from the county, the results, it gives about 5 months to get this up and running and have you guys make changes in your POSs. Allow us to print out all those flyers and distribute them. The last slide. These are our contact information. You all know where I work. I'm going to have a fire station during the day. Paramedics don't like it when you bang on the door at midnight. But if you see a red Tahoe sitting up front, means I'm there unless there's like an ambulance gone. But please feel free to come in. My doors are open. Have a conversation. Happy to show you around the fire station, kind of what the equipment looks like. I can show you pictures of new stuff. But always willing to have a conversation with anybody, as long as everybody's polite and respectful.
Before we do question and answers, can I just say thank you so much, John, for that. And then before you start, can you, when was our building built? When was the new
Fire station was started like 2008, around here.
And can you, just because I want everybody to understand, this building in 2008. You have a work.
No, we don't have a range.
What do you do with it for questions that we don't, for questions that you guys have that we absolutely do not have the answers, but we will get the answers. I'm gonna ask Tiffany to write them down so you guys see that we are listening to you. So, and if questions that we can answer, we will answer. So, Courtney.
I just want to make a quick announcement, for the people that want to watch this recording later, can we really make sure that we're not talking over each other? It gets really jumbled, and I know that there could be plenty of people that want to be able to take a look back at this. We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
And Bernard.
Yes, and I would like to hear questions, but also ideas.
Yes.
So
Listen to you.
I heard an excellent idea from one of our business owners that maybe you pause the tax in the off season. I don't know what the revenue impact would be, but I'm very open to that type of idea. So to me, that should be on the butcher block, that we do staff analysis on pausing and call it October to March, we don't collect the tax because we know most of your customers are locals. We want to take care of our locals, right? And then it gets back to its core. Our core objective is to tax the tourists. That's our objective because they're creating all the demand on our fire department. Why are we collecting in the winter when, we're the ones now asking 911? So
Yeah, I
anyway,
agree with that.
okay, just a thought. But again, we welcome ideas on how to do this better.
And I'm gonna do Dave first, and I see you, Terry, and see you.
Yeah, so my question is just like, what does it take to get the number to go down to 5%? The study that you guys got from Eagle Northwest, I think is grossly underestimating the revenue it's gonna generate. I think it's gonna, at 7.5, it's gonna go, upwards of $600 to $1 million generated. Double question. I think the 5% number is more appropriate, makes it easier for us to change coins in the business with everything in the pie versus us having to break out pennies and nickels.
Okay.
It's just all the change, which every single night, every single partner is gonna have to count. Okay, all the change so it's like, what does it take for you guys to listen and trust us?
We're listening, and we're gonna be accountable.
That the 7 is too high. We follow with the rest of the state and go to the 5. It's like you need to go tally up what everybody's doing right now in sales in some confidential way. So you guys can just say, oh, 7 is too high. Like my question is, what does it take for you to listen?
Can I ask a question back? And lower it during the winter months? I mean, is that, you want 5% and not charging?
I mean, really, yeah, the best thing would be figure out what the needs are for the station and then lock in some amount of fundraise to that. So then you have some, hey, man, we blew the 360 number. We're, okay, we get to keep up at 400 and after that we boot the tax or something like that.
Okay.
But
Would that be bringing administrative costs or the administrative refund down to 3%? They're getting 2 now, up to 7.
Yeah,
So if you had 5, would be bringing the administrative
down to
down to
3.
3? That just tracking.
the administrative cost comes from the total money that we give.
Quarterly,
So-
whatever the business collects.
So if we raise $100,000 and we get $5,000, so you're saying
5%.
we only get 3.
Since if we go down to 5, then only give you 3%.
What is the
But
rest
I
of
mean,
it?
but you're saying 360, does it matter the administrative cost? You guys-
So hold on, one at a time. So you're asking, basically what I'm hearing, if I can hear, you're asking us to figure out how much we need, including all of that, not making citizens pay during the winter and the percentage that.
The need has already been set.
Yeah, so the bottom line, I'm just asking you to appropriately set a rate of tax to the need and then lock it in some way. My worry is, boom, the tax rate is $1 million, guess what? John's right around town for that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna do that, but, maybe we have, 25 firefighters that, that we're paying. And it's just locking it in to say like, this is what we need, this is how much we need to raise, and if we raise more than that, then, or hey, we go past the 360, guess what, the rest of it goes to street renovations.
Yeah.
You know, and boom, we have new sidewalks in.
If we're gonna take all this stuff into consideration or get you guys answers, then I wanna emphasize that $360,000 is not gonna fix the fire and EMS. So that's not like we're gonna go replace the vehicles and all that, because they're $1 million vehicles.
And the cost of doing business does not go down. It's not going to decrease. So at $360,000 in 10 years, that's not gonna be enough.
And then Terry, you are next.
Yes, I have a question, maybe I wasn't here about it, but, I keep hearing these rumors about, and I was at the meeting for auditing, yeah. And I keep hearing rumors about auditing their quarterly or annually, and that's,
The city has talked about it. We would be using an outside firm, but we have no answers for you on that.
Okay, so
We have not come up with anything yet.
here's my,
But the city's not gonna be coming around auditing you.
yes, cause that is gonna cost us money.
Yeah.
That 3%, 5% is not gonna cover my auditor.
Right.
If I understand that, my bookkeeper's gonna have to go through and tell you what is taxable and what is not. And so in that line item, if thankfully the auditing's not going through, but I mean, if we had to give a little bit more information, then we're not subject to auditing if we can do that. Because I don't care if it costs me $50, I don't wanna be audited, because I know for a fact that the city hasn't passed an audit in I don't know how many years. So, I mean,
And that's why we're being very transparent and honest. We don't know what that looks like, so we're not gonna be able to give you an answer to that currently, but you will know what that looks like.
yes, that's, yes.
Yes, you will know what that looks like as soon as we have an answer. And then I'm gonna go with Heather.
Yeah, so my question is actually more for the business owners and if you're willing to answer, I would love to hear from each of you, your business, whether you support this or not, or to but with caveats and where you live.
I'll go first. I need to leave. My sister owns Brigham Fish Market. I am not speaking on behalf of Brigham Fish Market, but my personal stuff, I'm for it because we need to pay for it. We can't rely on Hood River, Stevenson, or anybody else. And because they don't, in my opinions, through living here most of my life, they don't care about Cascade Locks. So, my reservation is definitely the auditing. Yes, it does not sit well. So if we're making the payments, we're doing from the tourists to you guys and writing a check and giving you the line items and the information, I am all for it.
So Terry, we deal with, TR tax at the hotel. If you wanna call me or stop by sometime, I can kind of talk to you about how that goes. Cause it'll be the same with the, this tax as it is with the TR tax.
Yeah, but then we would have to hire an auditor to come.
Okay.
Let's
With
get
all
some
due respect,
discussion on it. Michelle, will next. Thank you, Terry and Michelle. We would have it just, caveat that we know, it would be written that all the money would have to go to fire. Cannon Beach does go to fire. So the city of Cannon Beach has the tax. They have a special district, for their fire district, so they are not part of the city government. They have their own board of directors who
talking with their fire chief, down in Bend at our conference, we're kind of researching this. They get 50% of the total food and beverage tax, which has allowed them to replace apparatus, to hire staffing, because they were in a similar situation where volunteerism was going down, call volume was going up. They were waiting for Seaside and all the rest to help them. So they get 50%, which is about $500,000 a year. I think the number I heard from Cannon Beach is they get about $1 million a year off of their food and beverage tax. And a little bit to Dave's point about too much money. The 360 is pretty conservative. It's pretty much keeping things mostly status quo. There are some spots that it sends money into a reserve account so we can purchase apparatus. I think the days of us writing a check for $1 million and handing it to the manufacturer are pretty much over, because most of the big cities are over that too. So what they're doing is they call it a leasing program. It's just like going to buy a car. So you borrow the money over however many years to make your payment. And at the end of those years, that fire engine is yours. So they call it leasing, which threw me for a huge loop. I'm like, wait, so if I lease a vehicle for 5 years, then I have to give it back? Like, that's how like a car lease generally works. It's like, why you call it leasing? So yes, we did increase the EMS fee. So kind of how I look at that was like, so you have this gushing chest, right? And so that increase that EMS fee was me putting my finger in the bleeding, stopping 50 for 40%. This is like a Band-Aid. It's gonna stop about 80 to 85%. Stop the bleeding. It's not going to solve our problems. Not going to be driving super fancy rigs 2 months after it works, if it passes. Our fire station isn't gonna like suddenly look like the Taj Mahal and there's gold handles on the doors. And this is basically to keep us running status quo for firefighter paramedics on duty and adding one more daytime position with some extra money going into a reserve account so we can lease apparatus.
My question is, why can't this fire department get these funds the way these other fire departments are?
Which other fire departments?
Okay, so I spoke with Ben, I spoke with Corbett, I spoke with the River, the Dow, there's several around the areas that I spoke to. And they
Ben
were
is a-
receiving grants, FEMA. Okay.
Yeah, Ben's a fully paid fire department that has
Because of their population.
300 or so employees. They have administrative assistants for the
They
chief.
started off volunteer, I understand that.
Right.
There's also 271 towns in the state of Oregon, a non-tax state, that do not implement this tax.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form comparing us to Ben. Ben
Because I
is
talked-
a large
because I
city.
talked-
We're a very small city. Their tax base is a million times
Okay,
bigger
you
than
raised that. Oregon.
Oregon. Their tax base is higher than here.
271 towns don't implement this tax, yet have fire department. And it's not because they double the property tax at all. It's because they do the work and they get the funding.
You can't compare us to, you can't compare us to other fire districts.
271.
A fire district is completely different than the city by and large. I know that you're stuck on that, and I understand, but when you're comparing apples to oranges, that doesn't work very well. It is, when you're comparing us to a fire district in Corbett, these are the places that you said that you talked to that have bought new fire equipment, and I want to explain that to
They
you.
didn't. They got.
Let me explain that to you, because Corbett Fire has 3 fire stations. They're a very large fire district in Multnomah County, which has a very high tax rate in Multnomah County. They have staff, they do run on mostly volunteer, but they do have staff that sits in the station that works on that kind of stuff, that do not respond to emergencies.
They have a part-time chief and a part-time administrator.
Yes,
That's it.
And can I use the brand fire stations are in the United States?
There's, not in the United States, there's 350, or 308.
And we're all thinking that we can just go after grant money. We are a competition with everybody. I mean, you have to have very well-written grant applications, and you have to have a really super need to be. You're competing with everything.
So then we have a question.
So can we go back to Heather's question, and I wanna, and then we'll go on to the next question. Dave, will you say your business, and we're gonna continue
Well,
with
but I just wanted to, you don't live in Cascade Locks, correct? No, I live in Washington. Okay.
Dave. Would you like to
Yeah,
respond to Heather's question?
the Thunder Island grant, and, you know, at the current 7% rate, I guess my biggest concern is that, you know, that anytime you have, money coming in, that you get more than you need, which I think is what's gonna happen, you will spend it and find uses for that. And, my concern is that, you know, the next thing you know, there's just gonna be an increased budget across the board. So at the 7% tax, from the estimates that I've had, I think it's too high. I would not support it, and I would campaign to stop it at 7%. There isn't some trigger to say, we got enough what we asked for, or even if it was, hey, we hit $500,000. Where's the trigger to when it pops back down? And I do live in town, but, yeah, without any check on the.
A cap on the road.
Yeah,
Cap on the road. Understand.
then, it would be a non-starter conversation for me. And the city saying, oh, well, we could always decrease it is not,
I hear
Put it
you.
in the
We hear
measure.
you.
not what I would say.
Put it in the measure.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna answer her question, because I wanna get through her question first.
well, no, I wanna back home on that. So you're saying, you tried to just make a point that these two people right here have businesses in Cascade Locks, but they don't live in Cascade Locks. So they don't really, what I got from you, have a right to have an opinion to this, because they don't live, okay,
I think there's,
okay,
you know,
but,
if you were a person who in the services in town, I do think like.
if we have somebody at a coffee shop at a contract, then they are using it.
And I'm not
Yeah.
saying, like, I'm just,
She
I
just-
think that it's part of the information that I wanna hear.
Okay.
And then the lady, am I missing any businesses in between?
We're excited,
Okay.
and I do live here,
Okay.
and, my biggest concern is like, we are a small, struggling business. It has really never recovered since COVID, and our demographic is primarily elderly people. And I feel like that the 7% tax would really be detrimental to our business because of that, because they are home kids. They don't have a lot of money. They're already scrimping and counting change at the register, pay for meals, that a 7% increase would be deterrent to them.
Yeah, actually, so I guess it's valid,
If you hear, hold 1 second, I just want to laugh, businesses, and then we'll get to the next question. And
So I'm also with the Bridgeside, I'm Andrea, and I currently live in Warren. But I've been a part of this community for over 30 years. And I back this, but I have some, you know, questions also and some hesitations. I do feel like there needs to be funding. But, you know, my biggest thing is that you're dealing with a bunch of business owners and operators. And in both of these meetings, the ones we had in November and today, we were able to be presented with a case study or any kind of a budget that will help us feel confident in what is going to happen moving forward. So when you're talking to business-minded people, it's super important to make sure that you're providing that information so that we can wrap our minds around what is going to happen. How are these funds gonna be appropriated? Who's doing the checks and balances? Who's auditing the fire department to make sure that they're on budget? You know, that's where I feel the failure has come in the presentation that makes us uncomfortable with saying, I'm for it.
And I agree, and we're gonna be talking about them and addressing them, and hopefully getting you guys some solid answers.
So I'm gonna talk.
Yeah.
I'm very torn. You know, my dad's been on the fire department since I can remember. I grew up in the town. I do not think that's good luck. However, I chose to have a business here. I have chosen to have a business here because it is my hometown. I do love it. And I see, and I have seen since I was a child, the need for the fire department. That being said, I still have major reservations. I am not sold. I agree with you on all of the information. I think the audit is very wrong. I think that hopefully all businesses in town, if you guys decide to audit us, will come up and pick it. Because if the city of Cascade can't produce an audit, I mean, what? Why? And how is that okay? Because you can't tell me that even if it's a third party, that they're still not gonna see our private numbers. If we chose to pour our blood, sweat, and tears into a business and potentially lose a lot of business because of it, I think it could maybe not affect us very much. It's not. We don't know. I think we don't know. But I think that it's all vague.
Yeah, I know I agree.
There's not enough information, in my opinion, for anyone to make a good decision on it. And I think there's never enough also, I think, promotion of things like this to get the townspeople here. I don't get, so maybe the point is, Heather, I don't know, oh, you don't live here, you shouldn't have a say. Maybe that's not what you mean, but it's kind of how it feels. Yeah, I don't get to vote, but I did choose to live here. Also, the people who live here did choose to move to a town that's a thoroughfare with only 1,500 people in it. And that is, I think it's our little community is very rare in what we see as far as EMS traffic, probably because of where we're at and our lack of property taxes because of how small we are, right? So it's like we're kind of in this strange little bubble that's not very common.
We're on the island, I call it.
Yeah. so yeah, I don't know. I'm just very against a lot of things, but I 100% believe there's gotta be something. There's gotta be a way.
And that's why we're having this, is so we can get questions and concerns and get better at this and give you guys the information and all that. So,
Yeah.
so we can have these open dialogues. Because we want to be transparent and very upfront about it. We're not trying to sneak and hide anything. Did you have questions? Sir?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to sit here trying to wrap my mind around it. I think most of the business owners are here. I think that's great. I'm glad we moved from Hillsborough. Obviously, this is a big change for us in a small town. But I think with the fire department, from my interactions and everything, there's some really with John and everything else. It's very underfunded. Cascade Locks is unlike, I think, majority places in the state, in the aspect that around that, you're on that because you're surrounded by national forest land and everything else. I'm trying to wrap my mind around number one about the rate increase. Yeah, I don't pay more taxes. Like, no way. That's why we avoided Multnomah County across the board. But when I call 911, I want the nicest fire engine as many people as fast as possible at my house to take care of the problem. When I call it, so to say, oh, we have too much money, there's a lot of places that you can blow money at and that isn't worth it. The fire department's not one. You have the nicest rate, and you have 5 people and everything else. I want it here. Keep in mind too that what you get with a paid staff is quicker response time. And so if you have a medical emergency, take a heart attack. Your brain's dead. There's no coming back from that. You want people there as fast as possible.
unfortunately, we're in a place where that costs money. With volunteers, there, your survival chances go down. That's what you're paying for. And you might say, well, they only run 400 calls a year, that's not very many. What you're paying for is the capacity. I want John to be here. I want my firefighters to do this. I want them to do this. So really, at the end of the day, the 7%, I don't know, I'm not a big, I'll say I'm a big convert, but I just like the cheap Folgers black coffee. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Yeah, sorry. But we've visited every business here. And let's say we go to Thunder Island, we spend $50 there. We're talking about football. Let's say I don't know what your coffee prices are, I don't know. But let's say $5, 35 cents on that. Our back is against the wall. There's not any good option. So either we need to come up with an option, or we just say we have to accept the fire department as it is. I know grants. Everyone, yep, I want grants. That's not safe planning. We've been very lucky. It sounds like based on kind of going to get state the fire marshal's grant. And depending on if you went, what is it, Westside has a new tender. That takes time. That takes energy. That is not a stable funding source. What this is saying going forward, we can start moving forward to stable. Then the grants of new equipment. Now we have people, resources, apparatus, everything else that we can put that. But right now, we don't have that. And right now, if you call 911, you're going to get volunteers. You're going to get 1990, vehicles, like, it's wild to me. And we're talking about 35 cents, a couple dollars. And also, well, let's just say, if you go anywhere out here, any of the metro departments, you're going to get 25 people there for a minute. If I call 911, you might get 6. That is not only a safety concern, but it also, what happens to your building, your businesses, anything else that's on fire.
So I didn't see who else had questions. We're on to the next question or comment. But maybe we all have anything. Go ahead.
So I'm just gonna, cause I live here and I love to look at data. I love to look at numbers, like, I'm a nerd. So earlier you posted your property tax statement on. Okay, so, and I asked you if you lived in the home. And I'm not trying to, but I'm totally for helping out the fire department. Yes, I want you here. My wife has AFib. I need you. Okay, but comparing my property tax statement to your property tax statement, which I have mine right here, is highly different. And so, and my house is under 1,400 square feet. And I know your house is much bigger, not trying to cause any problems, but you said that your house was worth $207,000. Yeah, my assessment is $328,000. So, and then, so for city of Cascade, not trying to cause any problems, once again.
But don't call the county and come to assess the house.
Right. No, I'm just not trying to get it.
No, I get it.
But like city of Cascade Locks, my property taxes, I'm paying $726 towards the city of Cascade Locks. So I'm wondering how the assessment works.
2,700.
No, $726.
Whoa, you better
So
call
like-
the county.
So my property tax, my little house, where it is, tiny house, is $3,900 this year. It went up quite a bit.
So,
Like,
that was my house on Warco.
We can go back
My
to
wife
it.
is the president. So we kept our.
okay, yeah, so like,
Yeah.
I mean, if we,
That's
but
what
I don't even have, so Columbia Gorge Educational Service District? Yeah, so and like, why are we paying towards Valley Community College?
We
That
did.
much money?
We
Mama, but why are we putting that towards
We
voted on it at the last.
Yeah, I
election.
agree with that one, but like,
Mount or Columbia Gorge Educational District right there.
Sorry, is this?
I guess it's on that one.
I'm saying, no, what I'm trying to see is, like, if the city of Fairfield Locks is getting all this money, then why aren't you getting more money from this?
We are getting 42% of the total property tax that gets brought into the city. The city has other functions that they have to do. They have to
Right.
provide roads, they have to
But if you're
provide
getting
this.
40%, like if I went by the data and we have 757 houses here in this town, not trying to be a jerk, again.
I think the 23 numbers have been.
Yeah, but I mean, like my number came up that's like over $500,000.
Yeah, and everybody's,
Right.
everybody's not the same.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And we don't have anything to do with the property taxes, it's
Right.
a county issue. And
Right.
how it gets
And
distributed.
you have the paymaster.
Yeah, that's a sewer project
Yeah.
out by the high school that the whole county pays for.
Okay, I wanna see you get money, not being against it, but I'm just like, wow, this is totally different than living in the same neighborhood.
So I've had all these same conversations with myself. Because I'm a resident, I eat here, I buy gas here, I live here, I work here. Like, I've had all these same conversations with myself, like, okay, well, what would my property tax look like if it doubled?
But I'm paying $200 more.
Yeah.
Same neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a county thing, but like I've had all those conversations with myself, and what was most powerful, at least in my mind, what was this? It was the food and beverage tax. Yes, it would hurt the businesses if my family decided not to do that. We all have that choice, not to do that. I'm probably not gonna do that.
Yeah, I didn't seem irrelevant. I was just trying to find.
Yeah, I drink coffee for my wife, like, thirsty can. Yeah, I don't drink coffee.
And Jesse.
So I just want to say, well, first of all, I am a second generation Cascade Locks person here. I've lived here for 50 years. My father is first generation, which sits next to me here. But I've lived in this community my entire life. I have lived nowhere else. Okay, and I have seen a lot of things from this community come and go. Okay, we've been arguing about how to fund the fire department since I was a little kid. This conversation is going to be a conversation we're going to have probably after I die. So fundraisers are not a stable.
Fundraisers are great, so like the nonprofit association, but we can't use those monies to pay city employees.
So the point that I want to make here is that we have gone down the road trying to figure out how to fund the fire department and the ambulance service for a long time. And there's been a lot of things. So, what was the big deal here, like, back in the 90s? Oh, let's get a casino. Oh, that's going to save all of our problems, right? We're going to get a lot of money that's going to come to town, right? How popular was that? Anybody here want to say that it was not? I did not like that idea, because I'm sure there's somebody in this room that does not like that as an idea. We had a veneer plant that was trying to come into town, and we all decided that that's not a good thing to have in Cascade Locks. So we, here recently, we had a data facility that was trying to come into town. Boy, I mean, I thought that the picketers came out for that thing. There was a Nestle tried to come to town and tried to, they were going to supply a lot of jobs, 50 jobs. We're going to go into that place. We don't have 50 jobs in Cascade Locks. But we decided that we did not like Nestle either, so we got rid of it. So now we go to this, and now everybody's going to say, I don't like this either. So I don't know what makes Cascade Locks happy to be able to garbage can. We can't even be happy with the garbage can, right?
Did you get the statement?
So all I'm saying is we can be negative about everything, but to the point that we heard earlier, I think the fire department is the hub of Cascade Locks, right? It always has been since I was a little kid. We used to have great big citywide picnics out in the park. Those things were massive when I was a kid. Waterfall and everything. I mean, as a little kid, I still remember that today. Okay, the fire department has always been the thing. We had the bingo. We had everybody came over to that. And I still think it's the big deal today. And I'm very proud of our community and how well everybody supports what we do down at the fire station. But whenever it comes to this right here, we always say no. Cascade Locks is divided. It has a circle drawn around it, so you cannot grow any bigger than this. Our property taxes can only get to this point, right? And as long as we're gonna say no to veneer plants, and no to Nestle, and no to casino, and no to every single business that comes to Cascade Lodge, other than if it's a restaurant, a brewery, or anything else like that, we're gonna say no to it. We almost said no to Exalta down there. And I'm embarrassed that it was all over a sign down there. So,
Why don't we
you
just-
guys wanna sit here and be negative Nancy's about everything money wise, where are we ever going to get to the point where we can get to funding the fire department? Because we've never been able to do that.
Right, and then why don't we do a gap on the funding line?
Right here. When I go to, please raise hands and only when I check if we're recording, so we want people to be able to get the information to that aren't able to attend.
I think it's really neat, again, I think that this capitalizes on the businesses, and that's really important. We have a lot of very smart people here, they run successful businesses, you have people that have been here their whole life, like, where I'm lost at, is when we argue about this here, and I can understand both sides, I can see there's no numbers, I look at this and I'm like, yeah, I'm lost, so I think that can be cleared up, but more than anything, is what can we come together to figure out? There's very few options. Unfortunately, that's just part of the route. Unfortunately, too, not to Dr. Jared Knight, the courthouse law. There's very unique issues.
I didn't say.
They have,
Blame the board.
Jeremiah.
What I'm trying to say though is like, we all care. I think the majority of probably took a vote, they're probably not wanting this, which is fine. But I think that everyone wants, when they call 911, get in their business, their business on fire, or anything else, wants fire to show up. So let's, you don't want this, let's figure out how to make that happen. I don't have all the answers, but this is more of a call to action. We gotta continue not to sit on this, and be like, well, take it down the road, because that happens.
I'm gonna give you guys just a little bit of blip of me. I moved here about 17 years ago, give or take a couple years. And I did not do my due diligence before I purchased property here. I did not know that we did not have a fire and EMS. So within 2 weeks of living here, my husband's lung collapsed. And he's at home by himself. I'm out in Sandy. And he calls for emergency services. And Skamania County had to come, and that took them 15 to 20 minutes to get to him. I had to call my neighbors in the meantime so they could break down my door so my husband wouldn't die by himself. Because that is the reality when no one's there, you know? And so it's very personal that we have, when we make that call, that somebody shows up to our house. And don't be the one that it happens to you and then it's like important to you. Because I had someone that did happen to here recently in the last few years. And she was like, wow, this happened. I said, yeah, I'm telling you, I wanted to come. When I crushed my finger last year, I wanted them there as soon as it happened, you know, but they got there within 5 minutes. You know, so Courtney.
We all know you can't make everybody happy, but just to expand on that a little bit. Kind of an in the moment example. We had one person here saying that 7% was too high. And I get that. But then we have another business owner here that says that they're sure that their business will go down. And so as council, we have to take all of that information and try to make the best decision we can based on what we're hearing from the community. And how do you balance that? You know, just kind of as an example of the way we came to this conclusion as being an option.
And any ideas or anything, please email, because we're listening.
So just for clarification, I think that Jordan mentioned it when we had the meeting in November. So the reason that the 7% was thrown out there is because once this is written into law, we can always decrease that percentage, but we can never increase it that past where it was set.
Exactly.
So by going ahead and 7%, potentially having an audit or reevaluation or whatever, it could be decreased to 5%, 3%, 2%, whatever in the future. But if we locked it in at 2% now, we would never be able to.
Exactly. We have to go through the whole process and put it back on the ballot and all of that.
So when Measure 5 and 50 were in conversations, what some of these municipalities did is they raised their property tax to the max. So they locked it in at the $10 that they can take. But they only need $2.50 to operate. Well, now they have $8.50 for that inflation that we have seen happen. So they're able to step their stuff up as they're needed. A lot of places didn't do that. The last fire agency that I was part of in Hoover County, their permanent tax rate, 78 cents per thousand. That's pennies. And they operate now on a 5-year levy every year to make up the difference that they need to continue to operate. They're slightly different. They don't have the tourist mechanism like we do because they're outside of the city of Hoover. They have more of the agricultural farming community. Whether you're a city department or fire district, special district, there's certain laws and regulations on how money has to be spent. A fire district, a special district can save a lot more money a lot easier than city government can. So they were very frugal when they first started out. They rolled a bunch of stuff in the capital reserve. They didn't need to spend that immediately, so they saved it. So they were able to put that money into capital reserve, put it into a CD that now creates interest, and they're making money off their money. Unfortunately, none of that happened here in the city of Cascade Bluffs. But so that's how some of the fire districts are surviving. It's based on being super frugal when they were an all volunteer agency, and now that they're seeing volunteer numbers go down and having that higher staff, they have this large nest egg of reserve funds, not only that they can draw from, but they're making money from. They're getting interest payments, and that money is growing in that account.
You can also provide matches to grants. Most of the grants that you're asking for money, you have to throw money into.
Yeah, a lot of grants, I have to have money to get money.
Yeah. I'm getting ready to leave there. Well, we've got all these business owners here. I wanna mention to you, you don't have an AED and people trying to use them in your business. I do recommend you get one. I ran on the ambulance department back in volunteer days for a long time. And I started at least 16 hearts. One of them walked out of the hospital. It takes too long for anybody to get there for a heart attack. If you're down, you need to get CPR and you need to get that shot right away. Because if it takes only 5 minutes to get there, maybe you might be okay without an AED. If it's longer than 5 minutes, they'll start the heart, get the person to the hospital, and they'll be brain dead. If your brain don't work, nothing. So get your AEDs in your business.
First of all, thank you for some numbers you did give that. Who's using our service? And I think we brought up a good point. Aaron, like share these people that do it. So that's noteworthy. Also, Bernard brought up a great suggestion about potentially having the tax be seasonal when we have people here, so it doesn't hurt.
I acknowledge the business owner. That wasn't my idea.
We'll mention it.
Right there, Miss Meredith. Give her a big hand of applause. Okay, thank you, continue.
Because, that actually could help two ways. One, slow season here is the slow season, and it's really hard on everybody, so, that would allow residents to not pay, part of the tax for part of the year. So obviously, we're using service, restaurants, for all restaurants. The other thing is it also doesn't deter the local residents from using the services during the slow months for the businesses then as well. So I think that was a pretty creative way, especially with the whole focus of trying to have people who are using the service, people passing through tourists, be the ones that actually pay the lion's share. So I think that was pretty creative. Now, to Dave's thing regarding numbers, I think that's a whole nother evaluation of what the real numbers are. Maybe compromise, bring that down so people that come along for the ride versus not. And I think you mentioned, Brenda, is the fact that yes, if we go in at 5 and we find that 5 is not enough, we can go through the process again. It's not like we never right, but we could increase it if we voted on it as a separate measure in the future. So maybe this no and never situation. So that's just my future. But I do appreciate having our services in our town. It's a bummer that we can't partner with Stevenson a little bit easier, because that could have been a solution. But that hurdle could be a whole
That Dane State Line and that Columbia River.
a half-hour service.
Yeah, and I do apologize that I didn't have like, we would have had
Much
a like City Hall side number, 100% down, like I got this last night, and then today from 7 a.m. till about 5:15, I was in here. I sat on an interview panel to hire the new Pembroke County Emergency Manager, so Cascade Locks would have a release process, which was scheduled prior to this. I didn't think I was having such a huge speaking part today.
Yes, we
So,
appreciate it.
yes.
But I think also we should, and not have, convenience not. Even though it's not gonna happen, you have what? That's the biggest, or one of the biggest counties in state. They have 2 units, to my knowledge, covering that whole county.
Land.
Yeah. But even then, that's a long ways to go, so even just like, get it come over here.
And we've done that before, we've had problems in the past. When they were coming here all the time and they just said, okay, we can't, so they'll put their foot down eventually and say.
If you abuse it, they're gonna stop coming.
There's a difference between mutual aid and first response in your. A mutual aid should be mutual, right? So it's a give and take.
And it should be the exception, not the rule.
Yes, right. Yeah, there are some times that we're out on a call and we get dispatched to another. We have to call Community County EMS if it's medical, or Stevenson Fire to come over and help us, and they do it vice versa. They're all tapped out, then you see us drive over the bridge, you get lost because it's weird over there, and I don't know how to navigate.
Yeah, I'm gonna navigate you, Jeremiah.
Okay.
I just want to say a couple things and ask a question. I don't think that we're being negative, Nelly. I think that we're small business. And I think that small business is actually going away because it is so hard. There's a lot of things against us, and it's a big struggle to have employees and pay taxes, and we get property taxes, I pay taxes on every single cost. I pay double for meters, and I pay 2 meters actually, I combined 2, but we have a lot of things against us, so I don't think we're being negative and saying that we don't want fire and EMS. I think that we are very cautious for more taxes because we're just about tax debt. And so businesses are going under. And so I think that that's why we're here. My question is, there's a lot of businesses that have to watch, but nobody can for us owners here today because that's who is getting the majority of the weight. So is it not possible to spread it out among the businesses evenly to where the 5 that serve food and drink don't get all the burden of the EMS? It's on a very
So from my understanding, exercise tax, which was very little because that was not my area of expertise and research. Really the two in Oregon that are local exercise tax like we're proposing is food and beverage and transient room lodging. There's no other way to tax, like, I can't tax the bike place for a nickel a mile on your bikes. That would be cool if I could, because then we could spread that out. But per Oregon law, those are the only two that I know of, unless somebody else has
Oh,
read or listened. We already have it.
We have it.
They have it.
Those funds, yeah.
And that's what you have to.
No, those funds mainly go to tourism and bringing tourists here.
And Jeremiah.
Yeah, not to suck the wind out of the room. I just, and take it for what it's worth, I absolutely think council should research it and talk to the attorney. But having conversations with Jordan, our ability to lift the tax on and off based on season is not something that I think. And I didn't want to suck the wind out of the room, but I also don't want people leaving thinking, oh, that's an easy solution. Yeah, we worked on it.
And I thought that's what I remembered, but I didn't know for sure, so that's why I didn't want to go out to.
Yeah, and, quick call the attorney, he'll tell us again.
Yes.
So, this popped in my head, but if this goes through, once it's stabilized, would that $7 or $9 or whatever on the utility bill, would that be something that would be dissolved once this deficit has a new solution?
Possibly, if we.
We haven't had that conversation.
Yeah, we haven't had that conversation, but we don't want those people that live here to have to burden the whole.
I would have no problem paying $18 or $47.
I heard that a lot.
Yeah, I
that
would
was-
have no
That
problem
was my
paying
first stab
that.
at like asking residents for money, and I'm like, oh, the new guy from whatever.
Yeah.
Ask Cascade Locks for good money, like, I better go conservative. So, I think we went a little conservative on our, on that.
We have all those.
Yeah, that, I mean, loans don't help, but
I think we should have went for more, but regard.
Yeah, so just a few things if I could. So
Yeah.
first thing, I pulled up our budget for 25-26.
Thank you.
Total property tax collected for 24-25, the last fiscal year, as of May, was 366,000. Total property tax. So the math that you're doing, and that's from the county. You said 700. Is that what you're
No, I was
back of
saying
the
if
envelope math
everybody
was
paid the
doing?
same amount as me, but I know that everybody's not.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah,
that's the real
what I
number.
quoted.
Yeah.
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 I
So
was just,
you're like, why is it this is the real number? So it's 366. So again, fire gets 42% of that 366 for the 25-26, our budget was actually a little more, 380. They get 42%. That's what they're getting from their property tax. So just so everyone's clear on that. And then, so just a few other comments. So, as I wrestle with this, the chief said, look, when we're analyzing, how do we create revenue to properly fund our fire department? And you look at a property tax levy and you see, gosh, you need to double property tax. He says it wasn't politically feasible. I don't dispute that. I agree with him. But the other thing that I think should have been added to that is it's not fair. The fact that so many tourists are driving our call volume and they're not paying anything, I feel like it's very unfair to the residents of this town. Okay, I'm just saying, the call generation is from tourists, yet they're not paying anything. They don't pay to pick up the trash. They don't pay to pave the roads. They don't pay anything, So that's, I think that, I'm hopeful that this thing will get approved in some format. Again, what that fine looks like, we'll see. And that's what I'm going to be telling voters. Like, I support this from a fairness perspective. Okay, a few other things. So, at the end of the day, guys, this is a budget conversation, okay? Our fire department is struggling to meet its budgetary needs, its operational needs, which are funded by this budget. And when you think about a budget conversation, you quickly realize there's three options. increase revenue, okay, decrease costs, or a little of both, okay? And, you know, we just adopted our budget in June, and I welcome anyone to go and scrutinize chief budget. There's no waste in it. It is a very tight and frugal budget. But if you can find some waste and then we can reduce our thing, I welcome that. But good luck, you know. So if there's nothing to cut on the cost, then you say, well, where's your revenue? Now, just to take 1 second on cost, I have been a proponent of us at least doing the analysis for forming a countywide fire district. Okay. And that would reduce costs because you would consolidate your overhead into one entity. Right now, we have a fire chief in Cascade Locks, and we have a fire chief in Hood River, and then you have fire chiefs in Odell and those areas. So you've got a lot of HR, overhead, admin that is being replicated, I would argue, unnecessarily. But but every time I mention that, people flip like, we don't want Hood River in charge of our fire and EMS because we've kind of been burnt by that. They haven't been kind to us in the past. I get it. But these are tough conversations. To me, we should always be thinking, can we cut costs? I think that should be reconsidered. But, you know, I just want to put that out there that I'm not like tax them. Like, I want to look at costs, you know, but when I say let's consolidate and people, you know, take my head off like, okay, maybe they don't want to cut costs. Because there's not much cut other than doing something dramatic like that. Okay. And so the last thing is, you know, and to that point, you know, I would argue, I welcome you to go and talk to Chief. We have really worked hard to leverage what we have for revenue. For example, you know, when I was here, we only got $20,000 a year from Multnomah County to support the fire and EMS service we provide in East County. Now it's 40. He went and got that extra 20. Every year we get another $20,000. We rent out, we have extra capacity at our fire station. We rent out to the Forest Service every year so they can set up for fire operations. We are being very creative to try to squeeze this limit as much and pull as much revenue from all our assets, all our contracts, but it's still not enough, you know? And that's why we're having this conversation. So just know that we are working hard. We're trying to be very, very deliberate with your funds and use our assets as much as possible, but it's just not enough. So thank you.
I was just saying,
It's kind of, as far as the grant, you recently got a grant from you for solar.
I don't know if we've been awarded the construction phase of it. But we did, last year get awarded a grant to design a solar panel right on top of our fire station to help us reduce our electrical consumption and reduce that line item in our budget, so we could use that in other places.
And have emergency power for our emergency services center.
Yeah.
Kind of
Have a
important.
battery
Yeah.
backup
Great project.
that ties into our. So this year we're the grant to actually build and city administrator that. But we are working on grants and other things and trying to figure out a different solution to lower our operating costs as other operating costs through the roof.
So I was just curious about this consolidation with like all of the River County. What does that look like what would we have to do to do that?
There's a lot, he knows a lot more about it and it's a whole nother drawing.
Like, is it a piece?
It's not a quick fix, it's nothing that's gonna fix us within the next 2 years, from what I understand.
It's gonna be a long process, so kind of what has to happen is there's 2 city departments in the county and there's 3 special districts in the county that operate fire departments. So you have City of Cascade Locks, City of Hood River, West Side Fire, White East Fire, and Parkdale Fire. Each one of those fire chiefs, one has to agree. So That's challenging. That's a good move. There's some people that are really scared to lose their badge, what it says on it, or maybe their rank. So those 5 people have to agree on it. And then once that happens, we have to go to our councils and our boards and convince those 5 to 7 people that it's a good idea. And they have to sign off on it. And then once all those people say yes, we have to go to the residents for a vote. There's 2 votes. You have to vote to dissolve your municipal fire department, and then you have to vote to join this new fire district.
And if they do all of
It's
this,
slightly scary for
and
me,
they,
yes.
and they get this together, is this more beneficial for all of those communities or not?
It could,
And
Debatable.
just curious, like, if
It's
they all combine, would it be more beneficial to all of the communities involved or less?
So this is kind of how it works. You have $100 and I have 10. Now we're putting our money together and splitting it. So for the bigger departments, is that a good deal for them? No. For us, yeah, it would be a pretty good deal. But that's the hard part about sharing now all these resources. That now you have Parkdale, you have a lot of, and let's say Hood River, or West Side joins in. You have different pots of money, and so there's always some sort of kind of, because now all that's one, people feel very defined. And it's very, very hard to join 2, pretty easy because it's, hey,
Right.
we're good, or we're trying to have 5.
Well, what if they vote to dissolve the don't?
Yeah.
I just didn't know what it all entails.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of voting,
What,
a lot of politics. Do I think, and this is me personally talking, do I think it'd be beneficial for the county? Absolutely, we could really solidify some staffing challenges that the whole county has. But then again, who's in charge? What are the current chiefs, what are their positions become? Yeah, so where do resource allocations go? We don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at geographics, we would always have state staff, what that staffing model looks like. You know, in my mind, we would have personnel on shift, that could rapidly respond to units, and or a fire engine to an incident. But we would still rely on volunteers. There's no way that we're gonna put 5 personnel on shift at every department in the county. That would be a lot of money. But, you know, there's other things that influence the fire department, how we have to operate, what are laws, lines from the PA, why they say they're guidelines. If we go on a fire tonight, NFPA is gonna come in, and they're gonna look every piece of this, piece of that. They're gonna write down when it was manufactured, when it was last inspected. They're gonna look at training, all that stuff. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you know who's liable for that guy, and that, if they happen to die. Not the city. Me. So not only could that person's family sue the city for wrongful death, but they can sue me. So it's a little scary. So trying my best to make sure we have the best gear. Not only CYA, but to truly care about my staff. I want them in newer gear that has all the safety features. Cancer is our biggest killer in the fire service. Newer gear has barriers in there to protect that stuff from getting on us. So try to keep up with the health and wellness of our staff, both career and volunteer, and just equipment. But we're making our best effort.
we're gonna wrap this up, because I'm sure everybody's getting tired and all of that, because I know I am, Bernard.
Yes, if I could just add one comment while you're all here. So the revenue cap, which I think there's a lot of validity behind that. If we do something like that, what I would like to tell you, because where my head's at, is like, it's a revenue cap, but it's also inflation adjusted, okay? So generally your costs go up as you do business, and the, the economic wheel goes. My coffee didn't cost much now it costs more. So there's a natural increasing of inflation. So of course the revenue from the 5 or 7% would then go up as well. Everyone get that, right? So if you say, well, you're capping at 350, and then 3 years later, revenue has gone up more because prices have gone up, then whoa, what are we doing? That puts us in a bind. So I just want you guys to know I'm going to be advocating for some kind of increment clause that acknowledges the price of goods going up, and that doesn't screw up the cap. Does that make sense? Okay.
And if you guys think of anything, good suggestions, comments, whatever, please email or whatever, because we will be looking at all of this and anything that we receive. And I'll bring it in front of the council and we can all talk about it, so it's a discussion.
I have a simple question.
Mhm.
As far as the property tax goes, when you said double property tax? So
For a levy.
for a levy, so it has to be double. There's no way for it to be like a smaller
I think that's what
levy.
Jordan math out to be to get the numbers from WD.
Without doing a food and beverage center.
We'll get all your guys' questions answered and concerns and get better numbers and all of that for you. For sure. Thank you. Yes, I appreciate all of you guys for coming.
Thank you for not throwing rocks at me.
Yes.
Thank you.